Okay, let's unpack this. We're going deep into the political stalemate that, well, it's paralyzed essential government operations.
That's right. The government shutdown is grinding through its fourth week, and our mission today is really to cut through the noise, get past the headlines, and find the structural root of this failure.
Yeah, what's really going on here?
We are looking at a financial roadblock. Now, critics are saying this involves demands for, get this, $1.5 trillion in new spending. And we need to understand exactly how that demand translates into real-world harm for you, the taxpayer.
Right. Our sources, they clearly show the conflict centers on what should be a straightforward funding bill. That's the House-passed H.R. 5371. Proponents, they call it the clean, nonpartisan CR.
A clean CR. Okay, so for anyone catching up, that's basically the keep the lights on bill.
Exactly. It keeps government functions running just as they were. No new money, no major policy changes. It's supposed to buy time, right, for Congress to negotiate the full budget bills later.
It is the keep the lights on measure. But it's blocked. Senate Democrats are holding it up. So we're synthesizing the sources here to identify the specific policy writers.
Writers, okay. Those are the unrelated, often controversial policy demands.
Precisely. The things the minority party is insisting on attaching to this must-pass bill. And that's what's preventing passage.
And the consequences are piling up.
Oh, yeah. This deadlock has triggered over 300 industry and conservative groups to demand immediate action. They're saying the damage grows exponentially every single hour this continues.
And finally, we're going to need to analyze the procedural mechanism behind all this. You hear about it all the time. The Senate filibuster that gives the minority party this, well, incredible leverage. It enables this costly brinkmanship, doesn't it?
It does. And we'll also look at the dramatic, maybe even legally questionable executive measures being taken to try and get around Congress entirely.
Okay, so let's start with that path the House tried to take. The clean, nonpartisan CR, H.R. 5371, it passed the House, importantly, with bipartisan majorities.
Right.
It funds the government through November 21st at existing, already agreed upon spending levels. It is, simply put, the mechanism for maintaining basic function while the appropriators.
Those are the specialized committees that actually write the detailed budget bills.
Right. While they continue their work, it seems like the responsible path.
That's the argument, yeah, the path of least resistance. But, like we said, the clean CR is stalled. It's stalled because the minority party in the Senate is demanding that it include specific policy extensions and certain funding priorities.
And from their perspective?
Well, they view these items, things like extending subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. They see them as non-negotiable necessities, really, for maintaining stability for millions of people.
Okay, but what we see in our source material is some intense pushback against those demands, particularly from conservative watchdog groups. What are they specifically pointing to as the drivers of this big cost figure?
Well, the demands, as detailed by groups like Citizens Against Government Waste, CAGW, and the Center for Open Renewal and Education, CURE, they argue it goes far beyond just the ACA extension.
Such as?
They cite demands that they say include new healthcare funding specifically for illegal aliens, and also increased subsidies for public broadcasting. Conservative groups are, let's say, vehemently criticizing these demands.
Their argument being?
Their argument is that this is leveraging a must-pass funding bill to advance items that are, deeply controversial and wouldn't pass on their own.
And those groups, they put a specific and frankly enormous price tag on these policy riders.
They do. Conservative analysts, they claim that implementing these new policy riders represents an attempt to push $1.5 trillion in new long-term spending. That's the figure they're using.
$1.5 trillion, wow.
Yeah. And Heritage Action, another conservative advocacy group, specifically called the effort to block the Clean CR a sabotage of the mandate the American people gave to President Trump.
So the argument from the right is pretty clear then.
It is. They're saying the minority party is essentially holding basic government operations hostage to force this massive spending agenda through.
Okay. So that structural inability to agree on just the basic funding because of these added policy demands, that's where the consequences really start to bite, isn't it? Let's pivot now to the direct real-world consequences of this impasse.
Yeah, this is where the statistics become, frankly, shocking. We mentioned those 300-plus organizations spanning transportation, defense, veterans affairs. They're all united in this consensus. No one wins in a shutdown. And the damage, it quickly shifts from just financial to physical safety.
And the most immediate area of risk seems to be the commercial aviation system. We're seeing immediate and intensifying stress on air travel that is introducing measurable risk into the system. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Think about the people in the air traffic control towers, the ATC folks. This system, you have to understand, already operates with approximately 3,800 fewer fully certified controllers than the FAA actually targets.
3,800 short already.
Already. And now they are working mandatory overtime. We're talking regular 10-hour days, 6-day weeks, and critically, without pay.
So the financial stress is immense.
Immense. And that financial stress, it introduces risk into a system that requires, and this is a quote, 100% focus for 100% of the time. You can't have controllers worried about rent while guiding planes.
It's really jarring to realize a procedural debate in the Senate translates directly into an air traffic controller having to make those kinds of choices. That's the human cost, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the sources, they confirm the measurable deterioration of safety. The national airspace system is, quote, less safe today than it was on October 1. That's a stark warning.
And we've seen actual impacts.
Yes, we have seen direct impacts, including major delays at big hubs like JFK and DCA, and Orlando International Airport actually had to temporarily close because they didn't have enough certified ATC personnel available. It's happening now.
And compounding that immediate safety risk is the long-term damage, right? The shutdown doesn't just halt paychecks, it actively suspends critical FAA activities.
Correct. Things like hiring and training new ATC staff and technicians, that stops. Performing scheduled maintenance on essential air traffic equipment, that stops too.
Which creates a backlog.
It creates a permanent and expensive backlog. It's not just a delay that catches up, it's actual infrastructure decay that will require significant additional investment later just to repair the slippage caused by the shutdown.
And beyond aviation, the impact ripples outwards, doesn't it? Into national security, veterans services.
Definitely. Groups like the American Legion and AMV Seats, they warn that the shutdown threatens critical lifelines, things like healthcare access, housing support, and benefits processing for veterans. These are not optional services.
Oh, what about the defense industry?
Well, in the defense industrial base, you have many small businesses with limited cash flow. They're immediately impacted when contracts stall. Delivery schedules start to slip.
Which isn't just an accounting problem.
No, not at all. It weakens our national readiness and preparedness. It leads to these long-term backlogs in critical defense manufacturing that, again, will cost significantly more time and taxpayer money to resolve once the government finally reopens.
But the most immediate crisis, arguably, is the one facing the federal employees themselves. They're clocking in, often for mandatory overtime, yet they're bracing for what Transportation Secretary Duffy bluntly described as their upcoming compensation. A big, fat zero paycheck.
And we have the raw data confirming the distress. These are hundreds of thousands of patriotic citizens, parents, caregivers, many are veterans themselves, suddenly scrambling to pay for rent, groceries, medicine.
What does the data show?
Data from the Thrift Savings Plan, that's like the federal employees' 401k, shows loan requests jumped an astounding 35%, and hardship withdrawals increased 15% in just the first few weeks of the shutdown.
Wow, 35% jump in loans.
Yeah. This is not normal financial activity. It's a clear sign of severe distress caused directly by Congress's inability to pass a basic, clean funding bill.
Which brings us right back to that central problem. If the basic funding bill, the clean CR, has House support, even bipartisan support, why can't the majority just pass it in the Senate and end this human and safety crisis?
The answer lies entirely in the Senate's most powerful, and some would say most frustrating, procedural barrier. The legislative filibuster.
The 60-vote rule.
Exactly. Advancing most legislation, and that includes appropriations and funding bills like this CR, requires clearing a 60-vote threshold. Since the majority party only controls 53 votes in this scenario.
They need Democratic votes.
They need at least 7 votes from the minority, and that forces them into a negotiating position the minority is using, quite effectively, according to critics, to demand those costly policy riders we talked about earlier.
And this procedural stalemate, this gridlock, is why President Trump introduced the most dramatic measure on the table, isn't it? Publicly demanding that Republicans use the so-called nuclear option.
That's right. His quote was, "Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it NOW."
So the nuclear option,
Yep.
What would that actually do?
Okay, the nuclear option is a pretty drastic procedural change. It basically allows the simple majority, those 53 votes, to establish a new Senate precedent that effectively overrides the 60-vote requirement just for legislation.
So if they used it,
If they used it for this, the clean CR would pass immediately. No need for a single Democratic vote or concession on those policy riders.
But GOP Senate leadership hasn't exactly jumped at this. Why the strong institutional resistance we see there?
Well, it's the ultimate strategic debate within the Senate, really. Veteran Republicans, many of them, strongly resist eliminating the legislative filibuster. Why? Because they argue it protects them when they're inevitably in the minority someday.
The shoe on the other foot argument.
Exactly. They view it as an essential tool that, quote, forces us to find common ground, as one senator put it. It prevents the majority, whichever party it is, from just ramming through unpopular or really transformative legislation without broader consensus. It's seen as a mechanism of restraint, for better or worse.
And this whole procedural failure, Congress basically unable to do its job, it led to an extraordinary response from the executive branch regarding military pay. Many are calling this a dangerous end run around the Constitution.
It was certainly extraordinary. The procedural inability of Congress to perform its most basic financial duty, funding the government, essentially forced President Trump's hand, or at least that's the administration's argument. He unilaterally ordered military personnel to be paid.
How? Where did the money come from?
He did it by repurposing a reported $8 billion in Defense Department funds. Now, this money was originally earmarked by Congress for specific things like research and development.
Okay, well, paying the troops is obviously universally supported by the public. I mean, who doesn't want the troops paid? Legal experts are sounding some major alarms about the action itself, aren't they?
They absolutely are. Legal analysts are warning this move is, quote, almost certainly illegal under federal appropriation law. The Constitution gives the power of the purse solely to Congress.
And a concern.
Critics see this as the executive branch basically attempting to seize that power, shifting it away from Congress. The worry is, if this executive action goes unchecked, experts claim it sets a really dangerous precedent.
A precedent for what?
It could potentially allow the president, any president, to become a sort of appropriations king, unilaterally deciding to fund controversial decisions in the future by just moving money around, bypassing Congress entirely.
So let's try and tie this together. What does this all mean for you, the listener? The shutdown persists not because Congress fundamentally can't agree on a basic funding bill.
Right, the House passed one.
But because the minority party is able to use that 60-vote filibuster rule in the Senate to block the clean funding, they're using that leverage to force a high-stakes negotiation for expensive policy riders that, as we heard, critics are pegging at $1.5 trillion.
And the tangible costs are immediate and really profound. It's affecting the safety of our airspace, the readiness of our national defense, and the basic financial stability of hundreds of thousands of patriotic Americans just trying to do their jobs.
And Congress's procedural failure to govern then led to that extraordinary action. The president essentially picking up a hammer to break the lock on the safe, you could say, with the military pay action.
It's a stark illustration of the breakdown.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider today. The president bypassed Congress to pay the troops. Okay, that's a non-controversial, universally supported action on the surface. But if the executive branch is willing to use such legally dubious means, repurposing billions of dollars to resolve something everyone agrees on, what controversial spending might it decide to unilaterally fund next if Congress continues to, well, abdicate its most basic financial responsibility?
It's a profound question, really, about the separation of powers that just hangs over this entire stalemate. Something to think about.